Okay, so welcome everybody to another person hopping in. Okay, so I'll just say welcome again to PAC meeting number 4 for the Boardman Comprehensive Plan and Development Code update. Let's go ahead and do some introductions both around the room and on Zoom. There are a couple of new Cascadia folks that are joining this meeting that haven't been here in the past, and we've got a couple people on got one member on Zoom. So we'll go ahead and start in the room, and I went that way this morning, so this afternoon I'm gonna go this way.
Mike Lees with Anderson Perry, the city's engineer.
Carla McLean, I'm the planning official.
Leon Gibb, and
An esteemed member of the public.
thank you.
And then,
I'm Vince Guerrero with Morrow County.
okay, and then, perfect. Let's start with our PAC members who are on the call. So Isaiah, I'll let you introduce yourself.
Sorry, I just joined. What are we doing?
Just quick introductions. Maybe
Isaiah,
you could just share briefly where you are these days, because we've kind of lost track of you.
Isaiah Valencia. Been in the community for about 5 years now. I'm working out in the Tri-Cities with Riverwood Homes.
Oh, okay. And then Christina.
Christina Goss, City Council member.
And then Angie, I don't know how you want to go through the Cascadia team. I'll hand it to you and I'll let you direct introductions on your guys' end.
Sure. So, okay, my name is Angelica Martinez. I'm a senior planner with Cascadia Partners. Today, joining me today are my colleagues. I want to start with Jamie Kimmel. You want to introduce yourself?
Sure. Hi, everyone. My name is Jamin Kimmel. I'm a partner with Cascadia Partners. And my role on the project will be to oversee the updates to the Boardman Development Code that are going to happen sort of concurrently and in coordination with the comp plan update. So that's what I'm here to help walk you through our code audit phase of the work. And I will introduce Lydia, who's also working on the code element of the project.
Yeah, thanks so much, Jamin. I'm Lydia Ness. I'm a senior associate with Cascadia Partners, and as Jamin mentioned, we'll be supporting on the development code update aspect and have a lot of experience doing that work at the firm. And then I will pass it to Anais.
Hi all, my name is Anais Mate. I'm going to be supporting a transition that's about to occur in project management of this overall effort with Angie as maternity leave is coming into play. I have a lot of experience with comprehensive planning processes around Oregon, so I'm really excited to dive in and work with Carla. And we'll be talking a little bit more about what next steps look like after this initial presentation and group discussion around the code audit that we're gonna talk about this afternoon.
Perfect. I think that's everybody. So I'll just pass it back to the Cascadia team to keep going with the presentation.
All right. Thank you, Carla. Today we have a packed agenda. So let's see. Here's the agenda. So we will start with a quick project progress update. Then we will present a summary of the second phase of engagement. Then we will have a 5-minute break. And after that, we will talk about the code audit of the Boardman Development Code that we conducted as part of phase 2 of the project. And we will wrap up with project next steps. So to make the most of our time, we will walk you through all the content of each agenda item and address questions and comments at the end of each item. And we will have ample opportunity for discussion after each piece of presentation. So does that sound good to you?
For me, get nods.
Okay. Okay, let's start. So with the project progress update. So yeah, this is a quick recap on what comprehensive plan and development code are. So the comprehensive plan is a primary tool for local governments to regulate future land use and development. This is a long-range plan, and it's associated to regulations that will guide the local government in making informed decisions about land use and development for the next 20 years or more. So what's the relationship between comp plan and development code? Well, the comprehensive plan is implemented through zoning regulations such as the development code or development standards. So once a comprehensive plan is approved by the city and the Land Conservation and Development Commission, it becomes an official guide for how land can be used and developed in the community. So the process to update the comprehensive plan and the development code in Boardman consists of 4 phases. In the first phase, we conducted research in the first round of engagement to learn about the Boardman community. In the second phase, we analyzed Boardman's current growth trajectory and in growth in terms of development. And based on that analysis, we developed 3 possible growth alternatives. And I'm gonna get more into this later in the presentation. But so we asked the community to identify their preferred growth alternative. And now we are about to start phase 3, which is the more technical phase, which involves updating current policies and development code regulations based on input gathered in phase 2. So, and the last phase of that is adoption phase, and we anticipate finalized policies and rules that will be incorporated into the comp plan and development code next year. There will be some changes to this project timeline, and my colleague Anais will talk more about this later. But basically, once the comprehensive plan is approved by the city and the Land Conservation and Development Commission, it will be the official document to guide the how the land will be used and developed. Okay. So for those of you who attended the PAC meeting, the last PAC meeting, probably remember that we talked about Boardman's current trends growth trajectory and growth alternatives. And we also presented some initial ideas on where the heart of Boardman should be located. But for the benefit of those unable to attend the last meeting, I'll do a quick review of these since this is the background of engagement round number 2. So okay. So Boardman's growth is following a trajectory, and Boardman could continue this trajectory, or it could grow differently. So for phase 2, the key question was, what is driving growth in terms of development in Boardman? Okay, so one important factor is the population growth. So Boardman went from about 3,000 people in 2010 to almost 6,000 in 2024. So almost doubled its population in a relatively short period of time. So with population growth, the city needs to make sure there's enough land for homes, jobs, roads, services. And so we analyzed data from development projects built in recent years and also development projects in the pipeline. And we found the following trend. So industrial uses concentrate on the northeast part of Portland. Commercial activity remains close to the highway, and residential development happens primarily in the southwest part of town, and it's mostly single-family detached homes. So this led us to another question. So if this trend continues, what Boardman could look like in the next 20 years? In addition to this data analysis, we did an analysis of the urban structure of Boardman, and there are two key findings here. So it is difficult to walk and bike in Boardman, and there's no a clear defined downtown. So when we were working on this analysis, we asked ourselves, does the trend scenario align with the community's vision? Okay, so what's the vision of the community? So as some of you probably remember in previous from previous PAC meetings, we have a vision statement which was created by drawing community values from listening sessions and feedback from members of this committee. And so we created a draft of this vision statement, which emphasizes access to housing, jobs, services, safe, walkable, bike-friendly streets and public spaces, and a sense of belonging, which talks about identity. And the way in which growth is happening in Boardman now does not really support this vision for the next 20 years. So we need to explore alternative approaches to growth. And something that we think is very important is to start with is to know where the town, the center of the town is. Why? Because it will help us, it will help guide decisions about where future development, infrastructure, or transportation investment should take place and how the town will evolve. So in summary, defining the heart of Boardman is the reference point for planning growth. So for this second phase of engagement, having this analysis and this context, we developed 3 potential options of where the heart or the center of Boardman could be. And we call these growth alternatives. And so the first option is on the north side of town. And this option basically leverages the existing infrastructure of the area, such as parks, schools, restaurants, retail stores, to create a more active type of main street. The second option is closer to the highway and focuses on improving connections over I-84, and it also leverages state funding to improve streets and transportation in the area, as well as the new commercial development projects in the pipeline. And the third option focuses on the area around City Hall And the idea here is to extend City Center Drive to the east across Main Street to create like a 2-block downtown Main Street. So these are the 3 options. In addition to this, we asked the community to choose one of these alternatives. We also asked the community about elements that should define the character of the heart of Boardman, and options went from trees to gateways to plazas, traffic calming, and so on. So okay, so this and in August, the last 2 weeks of August, city staff and us, the consultant team, partner to host a series of activities in Boardman, and in-person and online activities. And these were the 2 key questions. Where is the heart of Boardman? And what elements should define the character of the heart of Boardman? Okay, so this is a summary of what we heard from the community. So most of the participants favored option 3, and the option that it's nearby City Hall. And some of the elements people think should define the character of the heart of Boardman are plazas, trees, wider sidewalks, gateways, and colorful, vibrant open spaces. So these were the preferences of all the participants across the different activities we conducted. So yeah, we have about 630 community members participating in a mix of in-person, online, and targeted outreach. And these are some images of the in-person activities. This is from Windy River Elementary School. I think this is Sam Boardman. And this is an example of the activity done at City Hall Park. So yeah, so in total we have more than 600 participants, and yeah, I'm not sure if you all had a chance to look at the meeting packet, but it includes the engagement summary with more details about this activity. So if you'd like to dive deeper, please take a look at the engagement summary. And something that I think it's important to mention too is the high number of participants from the Hispanic Latino community during these activities, and which means that these results represent the preferences of the largest ethnic group in Boardman. So that's very good. And okay, in the online survey, there was another question we asked, and it was related to the vision statement that I mentioned previously. So the draft community statement was vetted by this group in previous meetings, but it had not been brought to the larger public. And so the question was, on the scale of 1 to 5, how much do you agree or disagree with the vision statement? And as a result, so the average rating was 4.1, meaning that most of the 86 respondents agree with this vision statement. Okay, I'm going to stop here and open the floor for any comments, thoughts, or reflections on what I've presented.
Any questions for Angie?
I would also piggyback to say that some of you may have participated or seen these boards out and about. And if you have any reflections or have heard any rumblings in the community that you want to share with all of us, that'd be great.
For those that didn't participate or maybe don't know where all we went, the health clinic just across the way, south of City Hall, they do a kind of a community outreach every year in the middle of August, and we started there. We were there over the hour and a half or so that they do this. It's usually around the lunch hour. And then several days later, the consultant team was in town. We went to both grade schools and we were there. It happened to be the evening when they were doing conferences. Or no, it was the open house. Excuse me. It was the open house. It was in August. And so we captured a lot of families in both schools. There was a sport enrollment event that evening also at the high school. So we sent some folks down to high school for a bit and we captured another kind of group of people there. And then just kind of on a whim, two of our staff went down to the rec center and actually captured people coming and going out of the rec center. So when you add all of that up, it was a pretty diverse. And then we also had a station just right out here in what is now called Tatone Park, just outside of City Hall here. We set up a place as well. And I think because of all the diverse places we were at different times, we did really connect with the Hispanic community, I think, in Boardman. But we also saw a very diverse group of people. So the grade schools obviously connected us with young families, the rec center with younger people yet. We had a real diverse group of people that stopped here. And I think we captured here a pretty good representation of people who are maybe more on our age group, the 50, 55 plus kind of thing. And got a lot of diverse commentary, not just on the questions that were asked, but on other things too. We had some folks comment about where we need more sidewalks and where we need more flashing light to protect pedestrians and a number of other items as well. So it was informative. So if you didn't participate in that, it was kind of fun. I had the night of that we did all the big outreach effort. We had planning commission that night, so I didn't get to do much with the outreach, but everybody that participated in it seemed to have a lot of fun. So yeah, and I think the outcome. I mean, when you have 630 participants in some way, shape, or form in a community, I mean that's 10% of the community. So it was a good outcome. Thank you. Anybody else have anything you want to share? Those of you on Zoom? Okay. We will
All right.
pass it back your way.
Well, next is a break, but do we need a break or should we
I don't need a
keep
break.
going?
Anybody else need a break? No, I'm getting no's here, so. Yep.
All right. Well, the next agenda item is about overview and findings of the development code audit. And for that, I'm going to pass it to Lydia.
Yeah, thanks so much, Angie. So as she mentioned, we have conducted a code audit of the Boardman's development code over the last several months, and the conclusion of that was a memo, which I believe you all received in your packet. But today I'll be walking through kind of what was included in that audit, how did we audit the code, and then some of those findings. And then we have a few questions for you at the end. But first here, I'll start with the overview. So as we reviewed Boardman's development code, or us planners love acronyms, so BDC, the first bullet here is related to understanding some potential code changes to the BDC that aligns with the vision of the comprehensive plan. So as Angie mentioned earlier, there's kind of this overarching goal within that vision. And so what are some changes in the BDC that we could look to potentially that could kind of align and kind of help meet those different goals within the vision. And so, of course, that was partly based on community engagement and then also working with policymakers and city staff to kind of assess some of those options. The second one here is related to opportunities to either streamline or simplify the development code for easier use. And so that can look like many different things. I'll touch on it a bit on some of the findings, but it can look like maybe it's consolidating a few sub-districts in the development code, or are there kind of standards that are maybe scattered throughout that we could look to kind of incorporating them in one section in the development code. So it's not only easier for users of the code, whether you're a property owner or a builder, but also for staff to implement. And then the last one here is amendments that are needed to comply with various state rules and statutes that have been passed over the last several years that are housing related. So the legislature has been busy over the last couple of years, and so there's many different statutes and rules that cities have to update their code to comply with when it comes to housing. And so kind of out of that audit, we developed this strategic work plan. So it lays out some preliminary kind of ideas and findings related to amendments to the development code. But there's more to come. So any sort of specific concepts to update the code will be developed kind of as we move further along in the comprehensive plan. And I know there's a lot of other great planning that's happening with your transportation system plan and your housing capacity analysis. So we'll be kind of working through all of those too as we move along in developing or updating the development code. All right, Angie, next slide, please. So I'm going to break up some of these audit findings into chapters of the development code. I won't go through every chapter and every finding, but some high-level takeaways that you all can kind of think about as we ask some questions later on. So the first one here is related to your chapter 2.1, residential districts. So we've broken it up into kind of what are these rules and statutes that the city will need to update its code to comply with. So the first kind of four here that I want to touch on, the first one here is accessory dwelling units or ADUs. You may be familiar with those. Sometimes they're known as granny flats or in-law suites. But essentially kind of what is required of cities is that they must be permitted as a use in residential districts. They have to be allowed to be attached or detached to that primary unit that's on the property. And then there can't be any additional parking requirements related to ADUs. So that is the first statutory compliance here. The next one is duplexes. So again, they must be allowed in residential zones, but that allow single family housing. And they have to be kind of treated the same way as single family housing. So any sort of design or development standards that apply to single family have to apply to duplexes. You can't have any other additional standards or development or design standards that apply specifically to duplexes. They kind of have to be treated the same. The next, yeah.
Just a quick timeout. I just want to kind of preface a lot of this stuff around housing.
Sure.
With you said it, but I just want to emphasize what you said, and that is that a lot of this is the result of the legislature being very busy over the past 6 years. Housing's been kind of at the forefront of all of our talking, and it's been a big focus for planning. Not that they haven't been dealing with some rural issues as well, but when you see these things, I just want to make sure that there's a real understanding that we're here based on the size of our community, the growth that we're experiencing, and as frustrating as I know some people listening to this are going to be with how these requirements are written, don't talk to me. I guess to some degree. These are changes that have happened at the legislative level. Whether we amend our code or not, there is we're compelled to comply because they are changes in statute. And so, we're gonna do our best to figure out how to do that in the most positive way, but, parking, I say this because, accessory dwellings and duplexes, it really says there with no additional parking requirements. And then under duplexes, it says to the same design and development standards as single family, which means you can't ask for more parking with a duplex than you ask for with a single family. And parking consistently is a conversation that we have here in Boardman, you know, on street, off street, how many do you require, those types of things. So, please, point your ire to the proper place. So sorry for the interruption, Lydia, but I just want to make sure that's just really understood. So thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, thank you for prefacing that. And you know, some parking, you're not alone in those feelings and those experiences. But yes, as Carla mentioned, these this slide here, when we talk about statutory compliance, this is, yeah, kind of state mandated rules. It's not the city itself taking this on. It's the state having certain requirements related to housing. All right, I will keep us moving, but yeah, feel free to ask any questions, and I'll of course break at the end. I know this is a lot of information, so I'm happy to kind of break as I finish these out if anyone has questions. And then, like I mentioned, we have a few questions for you. But I will keep us moving here on to manufactured home parks. So you all do have a sub-district zone that is specific to manufactured home parks. There are some state rules related to home parks, manufactured home parks being required to be allowed in any residential zone, but specific to density ranges. So it's between 6 to 12 units per acre. So any zone that kind of has that density range needs to allow for manufactured home parks. And so we know that there are also kind of, as we're working through the comprehensive plan and updates to the development code, there's also the housing capacity analysis that's being conducted. And so there's some opportunities through that process to kind of inform specifically what the city will need to do to update its code for manufactured home parks. Does that look like expanding the manufactured home park zone? Does that look like kind of other sorts of modifications or zoning changes there? So a little bit of a TBD on that, but just so you know, that will be one that we'll continue to be looking to potentially modify to comply. And then the last one here are called single room occupancies, or SROs. If you're unfamiliar with that housing type, I think it's probably most similarly to what you would think of as like a dormitory, maybe in a college or something like that. So essentially you would have a residential building where each room would be lockable. Sometimes they have their own bathrooms, or sometimes it's, they have a shared bathroom, and then other shared amenities like a kitchen or a living room or things like that. But essentially it's kind of, as the name implies, it's a single room that someone would kind of be renting, and then they would have kind of some more shared spaces similar to a dorm. But essentially that type of housing needs to be allowed in all residential zones. And there's some specifics within that, but kind of broad strokes there. That's how that one will need to be applied. And then the next slide. So this is, these are preliminary code concepts that are not required by the state. It's essentially, we're kind of diving into your code. We know that there are some goals and vision for the comprehensive plan. And so what are some other code concepts that we could be thinking about as we update the code that the community may be interested in pursuing as well? So this first one here is to explore expanding allowed housing types in some of your residential districts, maybe some that could result in lower cost housing and have smaller units. So we know your community is growing, and so housing is needed. And so are there some opportunities to explore expanding the allowed housing types in your residential areas? The second bullet here is to again, kind of explore other opportunities to allow for neighborhood scale commercial in areas in your residential districts. So kind of thinking about mixed use, but can there be more little pockets or centers of smaller commercial activity that's more of a neighborhood scale in your residential districts? The third one here is potential modifications to your development and design standards that go beyond that statutory requirement. So are there other opportunities to look at reducing minimum lot sizes or allowing higher densities in some of your areas? You know, we can, while we're talking about the heart of Boardman, that's more of a commercial area, but thinking about maybe there's some certain pockets that that you would be interested in seeing some higher density housing, some apartments or things like that. And then this last bullet here kind of gets to that earlier point when I talked about streamlining or simplifying the development code. So there are multiple residential sub-districts. So you have, like I mentioned, your manufactured home park. There's also multifamily sub-district. So is there opportunities rather than to kind of have all of these sub-districts to instead have base residential districts? So you have maybe a low density residential and a medium or a high density residential, then kind of these various sub-districts. So that's another kind of opportunity to be thinking about as we continue into some code concepts for the development code. All right, next slide, please. So the next one here is your chapter 2.2, commercial districts. Similar to earlier, we have kind of some statutory compliance requirements. You can see that on the right. So the state has some requirements around income qualified affordable housing. So we can think of like subsidized housing, and that it must be allowed in certain zones throughout communities, including commercial. And then there's some density and height bonuses associated with that cities kind of have to apply to income qualified affordable housing. So in your commercial districts, you'll see some changes related to that to comply with that state requirement. But on the left here, these are some other, like I mentioned, some other code concepts that are not required, but great consideration. So the first one here is implementing that vision of the heart of Boardman. So are there development and design standards that can be implemented to realize that vision? The city currently has a city center subdistrict. So is that revising that subdistrict or replacing it? But really the intention would be to encourage higher density housing that have that mixed use and pedestrian oriented development to really get that downtown or kind of main street vision that's related to the heart of Boardman. The second bullet here is explore allowing mixed use development and more commercial districts, again, to provide more housing options and help also patronize those businesses. And then the last bullet here is consider adding a parks and recreation district. So the BDC does not have one currently, but there are certain properties that are zoned commercial that are used more as public or recreational facilities. And so does that make more sense to create a new district that is more in line with that type of a land use? So those are some concepts to be thinking about. And I have one more slide and then I'll stop and happy to answer questions. And I know this is a lot of information. So this last slide here is actually on 2 of your chapters. So chapter 3, design standards, and then chapter 4, your applications and review procedures. So on the right, again, is the statutory compliance requirements. So as Carla mentioned, there are some modifications that'll be needed related to parking requirements for ADUs and duplexes. And I do want to caveat that those are parking minimums. They're not maximums. So if a builder or property owner wants to build a development and they want to put 2 or 3 parking spaces per unit, they can do that. This is really related to the minimum parking requirements. And then the second bullet's a little complicated, but so there are certain applications. So when you apply for certain types of permits or things like that, the state has what's called a limited land use decision procedure. And so that essentially means that there's going to be certain applications that can only be reviewed at a staff level. So it can't go to a public hearing. There can't be a planning commission decision. And so those include subdivisions, site design review, and then there's some other kind of smaller applications. But that can kind of be a big shift if, previously when it comes to subdivisions, they go to a public hearing or a planning commission decision that will now have to be reviewed only at the staff level. So I did want to highlight that one. And then on the left here are some other ideas for opportunities in the code. Are there other considerations related to minimum parking standards that could be updated to address housing and employment goals? There are some landscaping requirements that could be potential barriers to housing development. So are there some opportunities to tweak those? And then, as I mentioned earlier, there is the transportation system plan that is being updated. And so are there opportunities to incorporate some of those recommended code updates to kind of implement some of those transportation system plan goals and opportunities? So that's more kind of as that moves along, we can be thinking about ways to incorporate those recommended code updates. All right, so that is our findings. So I'm first happy to stop and answer any questions from folks, and then we have two discussion questions. But before I do that, I'll stop talking and happy to answer any questions or comments from folks.
Nope, nothing here in the room.
Okay, yeah, I know that was a lot. So feel free to ruminate on it a bit too. But if a question pops up, happy to answer them. Our first question, though, so I'll pose it to you all, is what other issues or concerns do you hope will be addressed in a Boardman Development Code update? Are there anything that we didn't touch on that you think you've heard as an issue, you've experienced? I'm happy to hear some other thoughts or concerns that you all may have.
I have one that I just want to make sure that we don't miss, and that's a lot of the changes around childcare. The allowance for childcare facilities, both kind of the commercial level as well as the housing level. We regularly hear about those. I've been kind of tracking, I was kind of tracking some of the work that DLCD work group did and concluded, gosh, probably almost a year ago now, they concluded that work. But I can tell you that when I participated in the survey that they did kind of at the front end of that, where they reached out and asked communities about their standards, well, we were so far away from being compliant with what those requirements are. So that's one that I think is really important, particularly given if we're going to continue to try to encourage people who work in Boardman to live in Boardman, then we need to make sure we're providing good childcare in Boardman. We've got to figure out how to put the whole pie together, so to speak.
Yeah, thank you for that feedback, Carla. That's great. Appreciate it. Any other comments or thoughts from other folks?
I have a follow-up question for the crowd. I'd be curious in the room for those, who interacts with the code. What are our PAC members' experience with the development code, or do you interact with it professionally? Have you interacted with it personally?
So I'll throw this out because Mike is our city engineer. We talk a lot about the development code. He probably has some thoughts, but I want to reach out specifically to Isaiah. He's a builder. He worked on the River Ridge subdivision here for the past, I think you said 5 years, Isaiah. And of course, we've had a lot of conversations about the development code. So I would like to hear if Isaiah has any insights or input into the conversation. And I don't mean to put you on the spot, but I appreciate your input.
I mean, right now I don't have too much input. I feel like it's been nice to work with the city and actually be able to have the conversations and adjust as we have on the fly. At the moment, I think it's just making sure that we're building, obviously to the code that we need and have all that information out to the community, because I feel like a lot of that doesn't get passed on to the people of the city, if that makes sense. Because there's times where I get questioned for why we did things a certain way, and then I just refer back to the code. So people hopefully are satisfied with that, but a lot of times, they aren't informed well enough to know why we do certain things. The swells, the way the roads are installed, things of that nature. But yeah, you did put me on the spot a little bit.
Thanks. No, hey, I will share, I will share that the builder that Isaiah works for, Woodhill Homes, they did the River Ridge subdivision. They have most recently reached out and asked us about the ADU piece. So I know that we have builders who are interested in those ADU allowances. So I think that'll be a big piece. For seeing how we can either address some density issues with our current lot sizes, and allow for more opportunity. And Dawn just joined us. Welcome, Dawn. Thanks for joining.
Thanks
Yeah,
for having me. Apologies, I was stuck in a housing meeting that you all would love to hear more about.
great. Well, happy that you can join. And I guess maybe one other follow-up question to that is, are there sections of the code, if you've had experience that have worked well, or other jurisdictions that have elements to codes that you're like, wow, that was great. It's okay if not, I'm happy to move on to the next question, but even if there aren't any issues or concerns, or if there's something that's working well, would love to hear that too.
I'm not sure anybody else in the room or on the call really has interacted with the code all that much. So
Okay.
the county
Yeah,
may, when the
understood.
county does some construction in Boardman, they're gonna engage with the development code, but some of the projects you've been talking about haven't come to fruition yet, so.
Is that a development code issue?
I don't think that their lack of building in Boardman has been a development code issue. It's been other issues that have kind of stymied projects that I'm trying to think of off the top of my head, but eventually they'll find the right project and they'll do something here in the city, so.
Great. Well, then I'll move on to the next question, and hopefully this one's maybe a little easier to answer, or just, maybe have some ideas around, which are, and we say code concepts, but that can be too, Angie shared that earlier slide when we were asking the community on different kind of elements of what they would want to see in the heart of Boardman. Is it, more public spaces, or a gateway entrance to the downtown, different things like that. But what are those most important elements to you to establish this heart of Boardman? What would you want to see kind of in the code, but it can just be too, what would you like to see in the heart of Boardman?
Yeah, I'd like everybody to participate. Christina is on the call. She's one of our city councilors. Last week, was it just last week? We did an engagement summary on this project to the city council. There was actually some kind of interesting conversation there. Christina, I don't know if you want to share a little bit about that conversation, about what your thoughts are of what a downtown Boardman might look like. Oh, did we lose her? Maybe we lost her.
I think we
it looks like-
did. I don't see her on the call
Yeah,
anymore.
I'm not seeing her either. Maybe we lost her. Okay. Yeah, Leon, what's downtown Boardman look like to you? We don't really have one. If we had one, what would it look like?
I think I'd go along with the surveys, what they have pointed toward. More stores would be good. A medical facility, and I know that we're getting one, but it's not a medical facility that's gonna facilitate my life.
Right.
But that's probably, my needs are far beyond what Boardman is gonna have.
In the near term,
Yeah.
maybe not forever, but in the near term, yeah. Vince, what might you say downtown or a heart of Boardman might look like?
It's hard to say. You'd have to figure out where to put it first.
Well, I think we've decided that the street that's out here in front of City Hall that goes to Main Street, we're gonna do that and then continue on the other side, continue city center circle and kind of make it that 2-block area, this side and the other side. As this little area here around the roundabout has developed, it's always been kind of, this is the kind of the government section. You know, we've got City Hall, the senior center, but there's some commercial between here and Main Street. And I think we want to continue that commercial from Main Street to the other side. I don't know that we'll have a complete mirror of what we have on this side, but that's kind of the vision. What does that look like? I mean, I like walking, was in LeGrand not all that long ago, walking on Main Street, you know, and it's just store, 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 store. There's no space in between them. Unlike the Dollar General and the Family Dollar, which is, you know, kind of plopped on a piece of land. Could you do a Family Dollar or a Dollar General in a traditional town down setting? I think you could. Because when you go to Hermiston, you've got that. Where they need extra parking, they've got the parking on the back side. You know, if you go to Hermiston Drug and you can't get an on-street parking, there's a parking lot on the back side. What's it look like? I don't know.
I've got an idea.
Okay.
Being as I am supposed to be representing the bicycle community in this city would be, and I've mentioned this before, more bicycle racks where people can secure their bicycles. So, and of course the bike lanes, but I know that's already
It's coming.
in the works. But another thought was it.
Thank you for sharing that. And I would say too, even if it's maybe hard to think about specifically the heart of Boardman, are there other downtowns you've been to where there's certain elements you're like, wow, that was really great. I really liked that. Was it outside cafe seating or, you know, crosswalks for folks to cross at different kind of areas with on a street, or urban, what we call urban furniture, but just kind of places where people can sit throughout a downtown. So even if it's hard to think of maybe specifically here too, if you've been to other places where you've liked something, that could be a good kind of inspiration too.
Angie, do you want to share that slide where we had some images of what folks were reacting to in terms of potential urban elements for the downtown? Just to kind of help jog folks' memories. Yeah.
I was in LeGrand recently and I thought I had taken pictures, but I'm not finding them. But there is, oh, I do have them. I'll try to describe what I'm seeing in these two pictures. So it's not Main Street, but it's just back behind. It's by, this says, explore the underground.
Yeah, that's
What street is that?
the president's name. I can't remember.
Anyway, I took a picture and maybe I should send it to you guys so we can incorporate something in the future. But the sidewalk has landscaping along it and the sidewalk literally weaves, meanders as you go down. So it's probably a 7 or 8 foot wide width, I'm thinking. And it's the store fronts have awnings or eaves that come out, and so you have some protection as you walk along there. At the corner, LeGrand, nothing is square in LeGrand. And this corner in particular is not square, and so it's kind of an awkward corner. But right near the corner, there's a picnic table that's been set out there, and it's you know, it's the classic municipal metal, but it's nicely done. It's painted in a nice color. And then as you turn the corner there, there's a bike rack, and then the sidewalk going down the other side of the block it meanders a little bit, not as much. It's not as wide, and of course it has the street light installations that are the kind of the Arabella, the nice kind of aged street lights with the bright, pretty lights on them. It's just very welcoming and inviting. And not that the main street in LeGrand is not, but when we turned the corner and walked down the street, it was like, wow, you just could really feel that sense of place in that moment.
Well, I think it's gonna be hard to replicate an old,
Yes.
like the old built downtown because people don't build that way anymore. So building materials and methods have changed to where, like the image with the wider sidewalks. I mean, those are old buildings that were built, probably built in the 1900s or whatever. And people don't build like that anymore. So trying to replicate that feel, I don't know that you're gonna. I mean, you would almost have to make it so builders build like that, and it's not a. I mean, speaking from a, as an engineer, it's not a feasible way to build buildings anymore. It's much more cheaper to build a standalone structure. And so you would have to, if that's really the desire, you would have to kind of pigeonhole builders into building that way.
Yeah.
And that may deter, people coming in and building that way. It's just not as profitable from a builder standpoint.
And so maybe the city needs to figure out how to provide a certain level of incentive for a certain type of development if that's what we want.
I mean, if that's truly how you want it to look, but I think you could get similar looks with, like like the strip malls, like where in Hermiston where you've got the Big Five, and I mean that's kind of a similar place, like by Walmart, LaGrange.
Right.
Something like that, somewhat, you have a large parking lot where people can access multiple storefronts.
Mhm.
I think that's about the closest thing you're gonna get to a downtown feel, but I mean, that's just my opinion.
Yeah. Well, I know in a lot of the conversations I've had with folks as we've been doing this project and going through these questions is they like that sense of a downtown, and they equate that to buildings that are basically have a zero lot line.
Yeah.
They're right next to each other. And I don't disagree. You can get something similar to that when you have that 3 to 5 occupant kind of strip kind of piece. If you could figure out how to push it closer to the frontage and put the parking to the back. I mean, are there ways you could do that to kind of get to the issue you're raising about the cost of development versus how do we get the look we're seeking?
Yeah.
And how do we balance those things?
Yeah, because I mean, really it's changing building type, because most of those old buildings are brick.
Yeah, brick and stone when you, yeah.
And so you had, when you're building a brick wall, you already had a firewall, and so code changes. I mean, you have to take into consideration like firewalls and
Yeah.
all that jargon. So, and then the preferred building means and methods is pre-engineered metal buildings, because that's the cheapest way to build a large structure. So anyway.
Yeah.
that's-
So I would like to see wider sidewalks, no matter where your downtown area is, only because you can do a lot with wider sidewalks, whether in the present or in the future.
Yep.
And so, and if you're thinking about growth, where's your growth going? East or west? It's not going north. So we're gonna have to figure out, okay, where's our growth gonna go? I know you're already planning for growth going out east, but how far west are you going? Are you going to the truck stop? Or what?
Well, it's interesting. Brandon and I have on occasion had that, well, even with our development team internal with Mike and public works directors and others. You think back to, when I worked at the county, there was this great map that I found, and it basically showed down where the Carty generating station is and the coal fire plant was, in the 50s and 60s, there was this big plan to build several nuclear power plants and at least 2, if not 3, coal-fired power plants down in that area. There was also a big proposal when you go back to that era. Oregon had quite the delegation in the 60s. And but for the loss of that congressional delegation, Boardman was on track to be an aerospace center. But we lost that congressional delegation. JFK was assassinated. There was a lot of shifts in what happened. And all of a sudden, We've got Canaveral in Florida and Kennedy Space Center in Texas, and one of those could have been in Boardman, Oregon. If that had happened, Boardman would not be 6,000 people today. We would be at 60,000 or some number greater. And what would that look like? And so we've kind of toyed with that and said, well, where does Boardman grow? Because you're right, we can't go to the north, there's a river. Going to the south gets difficult because there's a bombing range. There is a canal and farmland between here and there. But it's gonna be a while before we're gonna grow into that farmland. Growing east and west does look easier. And I think that's easily defined as Tower Road to bombing range. I mean, I think that is, if you're gonna have a vision of where you might grow to at some point in time, and that's not in the next 5 years, obviously. That's a 50 or maybe even 100-year vision, but it's good to have that vision. And I think you're right. We have to grow east, we have to grow west. What does that look like and how do we do that? And then as you do that, it becomes a long, narrow city rather than something that's, you know, bigger and square. And so where do you put the next commercial center? Obviously, Tower Road will be a commercial center at one end. You know, what's at the bombing range road end? Those are all questions.
Laurel Lane, growing from, say, Coonsey to Laurel Lane and infilling, if you looked at the city limit or the UGB footprint, there's an apparent
Hole.
it would be the southeast quadrant, which would infill between Coonsey and Laurel. Like that seems an obvious growth pattern.
Mm-hmm.
You run into problems the further you go east with infrastructure wise. It's easier to go, did I say east? Anyway, the further west you go, it becomes problematic because there's high groundwater and stuff like that. So going east is, I would say, most likely.
Certainly in the short term.
Yeah.
Until we can overcome the barriers of going the other direction.
Well, I'm gonna hit the road, so.
Okay,
I will.
hop on if you can.
Yeah.
Thanks, Mike.
Okay.
See you Thursday.
Yep.
No, I'll see you tomorrow on a meeting. Okay. Lydia, did we give you enough?
Yeah.
Oh, there's
Yeah,
one
no.
more thing.
Oh, wait a minute.
Yeah,
we
please
got one more
go
thing.
for it. Yeah.
The lower left little thumbnail picture, we're looking at a crosswalk. And I can appreciate the intent. It's called traffic calming, but it actually creates an unsafe circumstance for bicyclists. And it even happened to me just today coming to this meeting on my bicycle. Out here in front of City Hall, they have one of those. And because this is a detour now, it's
Right.
a lot more traffic, and I actually had to stop and wait for traffic before I dared pull out into the traffic lane to come into this meeting. See what I'm talking-
Because it narrows down. You lose the bicycle lane.
Yeah,
And then if they make those bump outs with curbs, you can't roll over 'em.
well, you couldn't anyway, because I think pedestrian traffic would naturally want to walk out into that area to cross the street,
Yeah,
but
good to note. Good to note. Okay.
that's something that I don't want to see on the
Mhm.
on the planning.
Yeah, thank you for that feedback and noted on, if traffic calming is an interest, that it needs to be compatible with all forms of people using the road, including cyclists. So maybe there's planters where bicycle lanes on one side. And anyways, there's some other ways that we could be thinking about traffic calming that are still safe for kind of alternative modes of transportation like biking. So appreciate that feedback. And then kind of going back to the replicating the historic look of buildings that are right next to each other and that sort of thing too. I think we can be thinking too about having mixed use, because it's far easier for a project to quote unquote pencil if there's also residential uses in that building. And so as we start to move along, we'll be considering all these different types of considerations. But yes, I heard someone speak.
Thank you.
Oh,
Yeah.
Lydia, I just wanted to
Oh, yeah.
jump in one, just sort of on a similar point. Yeah. And just sort of maybe see if I can sort of connect a few dots here. I think a few points that were brought up were, one of the the challenges of in this heart of Boardman is you're trying to create a place where there's not much of a sense of a place now, right? And so there's not a lot to sort of there is some momentum to build on, but it is something where you're going to have to sort of create an attractive package for developers to come in and invest in building in this way. And so the code is one element of that. Really needs I would characterize it as sort of a necessary but insufficient part of the equation, right? So you kind of need to get the code right so that one, you don't allow a form of development that would be sort of incompatible with this vision for the heart of Boardman, right? Because you do have allowed uses in that zone district today, and any point someone could walk in the door and propose something that would maybe not be consistent with this plan. So the idea is let's get the code in place and hope that that when a development potentially does walk through the door, then we have the right set of standards to make sure that it's designed in a way that's consistent with, the vision for the heart of Boardman. But then also on the insufficient part of it, it is true that some of these elements will require a developer to build potentially differently than they have in the past. Sometimes the developers build a lot of this kind of product new. Because they see the benefits of it for the project in terms of creating a destination and walkability and amenity people really want to see. But yeah, other tools may need to be in the toolbox and beyond just the code or policies in the comp plan. And Carlo alluded to things like incentives, having the public making investments and sort of help set the framework. So those are all got to be part of the equation as well. But the thing we'll be really thinking about is how do we kind of set a code standards that sets the tone for what should happen, but also recognizes those market realities, right? And make sure that we're not asking too much of developers so that no one actually goes and builds that, right? So we're trying to strike that balance with what's something that's workable and achievable for our private market developer, but also is consistent with this vision.
Yeah, perfect.
Thanks, Jamie.
So I want to recognize that Mike Lee's popped back in, and we just had Kathy Street join. So Kathy, welcome. Nice to see you there.
Please gain weight.
Oh, Kathy, we were commenting on your emoji there, or your stuffy, I guess that is. Anyway, welcome. Yeah, I think identifying what those other kind of incentives are and those other things that need to happen in this process is equally important. They may not become part of the code, but we still need to have a sense of how we, again, as we go through the housing capacity analysis that's coming soon, and we analyze that opportunity for mixed use. Again, building in those incentives, because a lot of the mixed use opportunity, the residential on top of commercial, would very likely be in areas where we do have an urban renewal district, or an urban renewal area. So we could maybe find ways to help build some of those incentives in with that opportunity for whether it be public-private partnership or the developer being able to take advantage of the financing that connects to that urban renewal. So I think there's opportunities that we can continue to explore in those things. Again, maybe not all housed in the development code, but finding a way to not lose what we're talking about, so we make sure we adequately discuss them someplace else relative to how we make these things happen as a community. What's important and how do we assure the investment happens? Yeah.
Yeah, thank you for that, Carla. Unless there's any other comments or questions related to the development code kind of portion of the presentation, I'll pass it back to Angie for moving on to the next. Yeah. project next steps.
Thank you, Lydia. And I am going to pass it to Anais for this last part of the presentation.
Great. Okay, so in the spirit of transition, we're going to be saying goodbye to Angie here very shortly as she welcomes in motherhood. And I'm going to be stepping in to help support and kind of see this effort through the end. So I just wanted to touch base a little bit around next steps, what we're doing with this information that we just presented to you today, what's kind of coming down the pipeline and where this PAC comes into play. So you've seen this slide before, but basically the comprehensive plan and the development code are closely interlinked. The development code is the implementing mechanism for the policy framework of our comprehensive plan. And there's a lot of things going on in the background to kind of bring this comp plan to the finish line so that our development code, as updates are being made, are reflective of our new and revised policy framework. So maybe the next slide is a little bit more helpful. Oh, yeah. So what is currently happening is there, as was alluded to, and what you are all probably very aware of, is that there are a number of amazing efforts that are currently happening right now with the city. You have a transportation systems plan update, an economic opportunities analysis, an HPS, a parks master plan, a lot of different technical planning efforts that really make up the bulk of your comprehensive plan. So there are a handful of things. So aligning all of these various efforts is some sort of magic. And I know Carla's working very hard to get them in line so that all of this can be neatly packaged up into your comprehensive plan. What it does mean is that there will probably be a bit of a schedule shift for us as we wait for some stragglers, namely our housing work, to catch up with the comp plan process so that when we put together the comp plan, we have the latest and greatest in terms of all of the information we need and all of the policy language we need, so that we're not making additional modifications or revisions to the comp plan at a later date. So we are, all of this work is happening in the background. While this is going on, our internal group is putting our heads together and we're starting to think about what are some of the key policy questions or considerations we want to attack that are not currently being addressed through the efforts that you have underway. So your TSP, your EOA, the Parks Master Plan, etc. You will likely, we'll reach out to you likely in the next month or so with just an update on what that means in terms of the schedule of these PAC meetings, but then also what that means in terms of the format of these PAC meetings. We may find that we identify some specific policy considerations that warrant a larger discussion with other stakeholders. This might be other agencies, service providers, other community leaders. So our team will be working closely with Carla to identify what those are, who those people are, what those conversations will look like, to continue kind of moving the needle through completion of the comp plan. You will all likely be involved in some or all of these conversations. They will likely be focused in on this question of the heart of Boardman, the downtown area. Maybe it's questions around an urban renewal district. So there are some things to sort of uncover while all these other efforts are happening. We hope that this will, come together in a nice package sometime in the middle of next year, depending on how your housing work pans out. I think that will take several months before that is in a good place and we can incorporate that in the comprehensive plan. But once we do that, then we can drive some of the implementation tools that we also have our finger on, which is the development code update as well as our zoning map. All of those are the implementing mechanisms for a comprehensive plan. So once we have our new framework, that's when all of these other efforts really start crystallizing, and you kind of see how the policy informs the development. So I will pause there. It's rather vague, but we will be following up with a bit more direction as well as next steps for the PAC and your meeting schedule fairly soon here. So we don't want to be leaving all of you hanging. And yeah, just making sure that you all know what's coming next. Carla, is there anything else you wanted to share as part of that update or next steps?
I don't think so, although there are a couple of folks on the call. You know, what I have found as a planning director for a county and now a planning official here in Boardman and doing some contract work with some other small cities, I think it's always really helpful when people in, whether it's a PAC role or on a planning commission, kind of understand, I think, a couple of factors. And one of those is certainly the difference between a comp plan and a development code. And you guys have done a great job of kind of talking about the policy and then how the policy gets applied or implemented. But I think when you talk about the policy side, I think it's always really helpful to let folks know, and I think I was supposed to do this after the last meeting, and I think I dropped this ball, and I'm gonna put it back in my plate and accomplish it this time. But I want to make sure that the PAC have seen our current comprehensive plan and kind of understand what a comprehensive plan might look like or what our current one looks like. And then what are the 14 statewide plan goals? We always talk, you know, as planners, we just kind of rattle them off because they're in there and we can do it from memory. I can remember when I first started in a planning department, I went, I am never going to know all that, you know, and I was at the county. It was like, I don't know what 215, 283, you know, pretty soon I'm quoting 215, 283, and I haven't quite got the 227s down, or the 227s down, but I don't know that I want to. I'm close enough to retirement. I don't want to be able to cite it chapter and verse, but I think understanding what those 14 statewide planning goals kind of are and what they do is important. And you've got that list up there of TSP, EOA, Let's Make HPS, HCA, and the Parks Master Plan. But there's a couple of others that are already kind of completed, and others that are coming that further refine that. And I think when, you know, when we talk about the statewide planning goals, 1 and 2 is, 1 requires us to do community engagement. This is meeting goal 1, this meeting right here, right now, having this conversation and engaging members of the community about what we're doing helps us meet goal 1. Goal 2 is kind of what they call the planning goal, which is kind of funny because it's all about planning, but it's the goal that kind of defines how you do it. Goal 3 and 4 are not really applicable to Boardman. They're rural goals, they're county goals. Goal 3 is the egg goal and goal 4 is the forestry goal. But when we start with 5 and work through 14, that's kind of where the rubber meets the road for what we need to do. And 5 is the natural resources goal. Cities have fewer natural resource issues than counties, just by the nature of size, capacity, what's happened, built environment. But we have natural resources here in Boardman as well. We have a river, we have the floodplain issue, and the things related to that. So we have wetlands. So some of those things are, those are natural resource issues. Goal 6 is about protecting air, land, and water quality. We do that through our wastewater management plan, through our water conservation plan. So there's things that we do to kind of protect those resources. Goal 7, the county recently adopted a natural hazards mitigation plan. Goal 7 is about natural hazards. And so that natural hazards mitigation plan and our co-adoption of it really informs the Goal 7 work that we'll do under this process. Goal 8 is a recreation goal. And so our Parks Master Plan is going to provide a lot of input into what we say about Goal 8 and how recreation happens. The bike and the ped part is kind of a shared thing that we have kind of worked on. This is the first ever Parks Master Plan for the city. It has an identified need for us to do a further planning effort around trails, and figuring out how we continue to address the needs that were identified for more bicycle facilities, more pedestrian facilities that are not just the sidewalk along the street, but to look at trails and how do we connect the heritage trail to other things. And so that's 8 with recreation. 9 is the EOA. It's the economic opportunities analysis relative to employment land. So how much commercial land do you have? How much industrial land do you have? Do you have enough? Do you not have enough? If you need more, where are you gonna put it? 10 is the housing goal. So the housing capacity analysis will help us with goal 10. Goal 11 is the public services goal. That one's always been kind of a head scratcher for me in some respects, particularly the county. It became more clear at the city, but it's also going back to those issues around air, land, and water quality. And goal 11 with public facilities is where we talk about wastewater and water delivery and fire service and schools and a lot of those other things, police services, all of those parts of things. 12 is the TSP. That's our transportation goal, and figuring out how, and again, I said that there is some crossover that we identified between what the TSP has done around bike and ped versus what the Parks Master Plan did around park and bike and ped. They have different planning timeframes. The park plan is a 10-year plan. The TSP is a 20-year plan. And they have different focuses, but where we could, we try to create those abilities for kind of cross-pollination of those ideas. Goal 13 is the energy goal. It's always been kind of an odd one for me. I still haven't figured that one out. And then 14 is the urbanization goal. It's kind of, how are you going to grow? Your question, Vince, about east, west, which direction is it? How does it happen? That's kind of what the goal 14 does. And goal 14 also talks about how we interact with our neighboring jurisdiction, in particular, the county. So when we have those conversations about how or where we're going to grow, that's a conversation we don't have in a vacuum. We have that with the county, because as the city grows, the county shrinks, and we do that collaboratively. So I think it's important that people kind of see that framework that comes out in that comp plan. It's all of those things that get put into that. If we lived in the Willamette Valley, we would deal with goal 15, which is the Willamette Greenway goal. And if we lived on the actual ocean coast, other than the river coast, we would deal with 4 more goals. And don't ask me what they are, because I've never lived on the coast and I don't know, and I don't want to. But they have 4 more that they have to deal with, that deal with all the coastal issues, many of which are driven by federal regulations. So I think it's important to understand what those goals are. And maybe one of you can just briefly help me remember. You've kind of taken those 14 goals and you've kind of put them into 4 categories. One is people, one was services, one was nature, and I don't remember the other one. Anyway, it's a kind of a different way to think about it. Our comprehensive plan today is 14 chapters because there are 14 goals. It's pretty rudimentary. And I think what we come up with on the other side of this is something that's going to be more dynamic. It's going to look at the goals in a more, okay, it's almost redundant to say in a more comprehensive way. Is there an acronym, or is there a synonym for that word? It's going to take some of these things that are already related and further interrelate them, so that when we're talking about natural resources, that's kind of goal 6, but it's kind of goal 11 and it's goal 5, and it's gonna kind of pull all of those parts and pieces together. So I think it's going to be an interesting outcome when we get to policy, around how we make policy, and then how it fits into what our future comprehensive plan will look like. I probably said way too much, but I think it's important for people to understand what is a comprehensive plan, maybe what ours has been historically, and kind of where our focus is moving us to. So thank you for letting me use a little of your time.
That was a great recap, Carla. Thank you. And yeah, at the next time this group convenes, maybe we can spend some time looking at examples of comp plan, and then also take a look at your existing comp plan, so everyone is coming from the same level of understanding for what we're currently working with. And there are, as Carla said, many ways to organize information. I will also just say, you know, policy making does not happen in a vacuum. They must, you know, policy language needs to be rooted in factual basis. So all of these updated factual bases that the city is currently undertaking are really important efforts for making sure that our policies are also up to date, and are reflective of what's currently on the ground and what we're forecasted to experience in the future.
Yeah. I think the only other thing I would add is that most communities do these things one at a time. It makes for less crazy. But where we've kind of taken this all on and said, we're gonna take a 2.5 year period and like, this is what we're gonna do. What's interesting is it has created this kind of dynamic. So when we are talking about the TSP and the Parks Master Plan, we are trying to pull those consultant teams together and cross-pollinate where we can. If we did one and then waited and did the next and then did the next, we wouldn't have that opportunity to kind of have those cross-pollinating discussions. And I think, Leon, those conversations around bicycles and pedestrians, and some of the things that have come out of both of those planning efforts, I think has been really positive, going forward, just on that front alone. So, it's been a little crazy making doing all of this at once, but I think the benefit we're gonna get out of that is that when we get to the conclusion, there'll have been a lot of cross-pollinating. And I think it will make for a better end product. Not that as soon as it's all done, we're not gonna identify where we're gonna start again, but we'll at least be starting with an up-to-date and current base to begin from. I know Jamin has something to say. I can just see it.
I do not. No, I think that was a great summary. And also, I just want to say that I think it's very cool that the city is attempting to do all these at the same time, and there's a lot of benefits to it. But you know, when working on the code, it's gives us a lot better guidance to go from when there's all these great and very recent planning documents that we know sort of refer to or represent the city's policy goals, as we can really think comprehensively about how the code delivers on all those goals and implements all those goals. So yeah, I think just having them done at the same time and all be very recent and fresh will make sure that the code updates that come out of that are really aligned with you know, where the community wants to go right now.
Yeah, yeah. Hey, Kathy, I'm gonna put you a little bit on the spot. You joined late, but given what you have heard, do you have any questions or any thoughts you want to share?
No, I think we've made some good progress, it sounds like.
I think we have, and I think we are. Not just on this front, but on all of them. So
Yeah.
I'm excited. Yeah.
Yeah, sounds good.
Okay. And Dawn, I'm gonna put you chimed in, you got here a little late too. So your punishment for arriving late is you have to say something now.
So no, everything was a great presentation, what I caught. So I did catch a portion of it. Thank you for that. And I echo what Jamin said about, it's really admirable that the city of Boardman is taking on all of these projects, because it's hard enough to just do one. And it does make, you know, it obviously brings you into compliance with various legislation that's coming through and or going to be coming through, as well as just getting a future or current and then future snapshot of what your community really wants. So I applaud you all for doing this. It just going through your emails, Carla, I don't know how you're doing it, but I'm very impressed that you're able to keep your head on straight and to continue this project moving forward. So congrats on that. One other thing I do just want to jump on a little bit more kind of when you're talking about the roles and, you know, understanding, you know, what the role of the PAC is in another community. A lot of the people tend to not realize that what their role is also that conduit to the community. So those people, they are actually the ones that are speaking for community members and taking back and bringing back some of the ideas and thoughts. So I think that that's something that's sometimes missed. And As PAC members, they should understand that, yes, you're helping be that voice for our community. So don't hesitate to reach out and have these conversations with your constituents.
Absolutely. I would echo that. Don will understand what would be the right word? The word echo. Anyway, well, let's echo this a lot. Yeah, Kathy, Isaias, Vince, Leon, you are our conduit to the community and to the people who live and work here in Boardman. And so, as you're out bicycling and you encounter other people, feel free to say things like, hey, the city of Boardman's updating the parks master plan. You should go take a look at it. Or, hey, they're getting ready to adopt their TSP.
Yeah.
Make sure that there is, that they're adequately addressing the needs that we have.
We have had a
Kathy-
lot of conversations at the library in the last 2 weeks about pedestrian access. And
Yes.
people saying, well, they're not addressing pedestrian access. And I tell them, you need to go to these meetings and give your comments and do the surveys. And that was my other question. How much response did you get to the survey? That was probably at the beginning of the meeting, or maybe.
It was, they're gonna switch back to that, but it was over 600 people.
Oh, good.
In some way, whether it was through us going out or them taking the online survey. We also had some very targeted outreach with, our community partners who are, bilingual, Spanish speaking. And they reached out to the Hispanic community specifically. So as a majority community, that's a real important thing. And so I'm just elated at over 6. Now, there's probably a little bit of that, where we met them in person and then they may have also gone and done the online survey. So there may be a little of overlap in that number, but certainly not enough to diminish the impact of 630 respondents.
Yeah, that's a great response. Good job.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Okay, so Kathy, I am excited that you are heading out or having those conversations. I just want to encourage you to keep doing that.
Well, sometimes it's been go out to the sidewalk and stop them and say, hey, take this path that they've made. Don't be walking down Main Street like we're, anyway. We've been very assertive in our talking to people about the pedestrian safety.
Yeah. Well, and this transition from to the detour that we're currently under as we rebuild South Main, I think that's really made some of those pedestrian issues that's really kind of put a pinpoint on them. But the city, I think, rallied and really has worked to try to figure out how to get people from, where they are to where they need to be. And,
and they've been really responsive when I call and say, hey, you need to do something for these people on bikes, because watching them try to cross across Main Street on their bike in the construction zone or, all that, it's been a great response. And
it has been.
I think people are noticing. And I think some people are now saying, oh, okay, maybe they are listening to us. So that's great.
That's our intent. We're working at trying to get better at listening. So yeah. Okay. Well, I think I've picked on everybody at some point in the meeting. So I'm done. I'm not going to say anything else.
Sure.
No, I'm really not. So Angie or Anais, I'll let whoever is going to wrap it up.
Great. I think the only thing to say is that we'll follow up. Carla will follow up via email here shortly in the next few weeks with some more concrete next steps. So just be on standby for those communications. And yeah, that's about it.
All right. So that's it. I guess I am going to say enough to say I'm going to stop the recording or first I'll adjourn and then we'll stop the recording. So last option. Anybody have anything else to add? Okay. We're adjourned. Thank you all very much.
Great job, guys. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.